rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The school board will convene to closed session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paren 1, paren C, ELL, instructional aid, support staff, leave request, as personal days and exit interviews. We have some guests in the audience tonight for anyone that doesn't know who they are because they're masked. Lisa Turner, Janelle Hollingshead, Chris Horvath, Tracy Watlett, and Janelle, you wanted to speak on item number 9. You wanted to comment? We'll have you do that now.
Got it. Where do I stand? What do I do?
Any place up there is fine.
Any place you would like to.
Yeah, we're up in, yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're okay.
I know, but I know my 6 feet, and I just need to be 6 feet away from people. Is what I was ingrained in now, so that we can all come back to work the next day. Yeah. So I'm here. I'd like to just start by saying, thank you so much for all of the care that you put into all of the COVID related plans that you put into place. I can't imagine being in your shoes right now, and I wouldn't want to be. I'd much rather be in my shoes and be in the classroom. There's so many decisions that you've made that I probably wouldn't have made, and I would have been in the wrong for that. And so I am really just taken aback by how much wisdom you have and how much you obviously care about this school. Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad I'm here because I could at least I can voice that. It's not about 9 and 10, but I hope it's okay that I said it. About 9 and 10, I'm just here on behalf as well for Lisa Turner. She, in my 15 years of teaching, is the best. I even feel very awkward saying aide because she is my co-teacher, and she's been here for I think more than 7 years. And when I came here, she had like these files, like these insane files of what all the teachers before me did day by day. That's just how much she cares about like Sevastopol. And so I could see what all my past teachers had done, so I could glean from that. And since I've gotten to work with her, every day she shows up to work, she's asking herself constantly, what can I do to help Miss H? What can I do to help the students? And she's just like my second pair of eyes, which in this year of COVID is going to be really important to have somebody that understands my curriculum, and this is the same for all the other teachers that she has, and understands our students so well because she's been here for so long, understands the culture. I was just talking to her in the hallway and going, well, we had our kids 3 feet in the circle, we need them 6 feet apart, so what should we do? And she's always strategizing with me. And just to give you a quick example today of how she helped me, and I could go on for a long time, but I'll just stick with today. We were having a discussion, and I was trying to like even out the participation. So one girl that kept putting her hand up, at one point I said, okay, well let's just hold off on this person. Let's just for a minute. We want to get back to her, and we want to hear from other people. And then the discussion was going, and Lisa like jetted over to me, and she goes, ooh, no, that student is not happy with you right now. And I couldn't see her because I'm seeing the back of her head.
Janelle, I should have said this before. The public comment portion is 3 minutes, so we'll give you like 30 more seconds.
Got it. And so she was able to let me know that that student didn't take it well, and then I was able to like say right at the end really quickly, like, oh my goodness, I love this student and how they participate, and I thanked her for being patient. And that's just one example of how many times she intercedes for students so they get what they need. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Horvath.
Thank you for having me. Obviously, I'm here to speak, with regards to Lisa's request as well. you guys are all well aware of her experience level and her skill set and the rapport that she has with students. But more and more we're finding that we need to plan for the COVID environment. And one thing I would just ask the board to take into consideration is that I learned very quickly last spring in the virtual environment how important Lisa's experience and her rapport with students is. It's very easy for a student to disengage with us and not answer the phone or text message or not log on to that Google Meet. And they're far more likely to do that with a staff member or an adult that they're not familiar with. And as I feel like the possibility is ever present of us moving again into a virtual environment in a more stringent manner, meaning that we would now need to support elective classes and not on a pass-fail basis, that her expertise and her ability to get students to engage and encourage them, support their academic goals and their IEP goals is, I cannot overstate it. It's incredibly important. I realize her request is a little out of the ordinary and unorthodox, but I'll take her in my department 3 days a week over no day a week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the consent agenda then. Does anybody have any items they wish to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, then the consent agenda is approved by consent, including the donations from the Fifth Quarter Foundation of $2,500 toward the track tent, the Pioneer Athletic Booster Club donation of $2,000 toward the track tent. Is that what you used at the cookout? Yeah. That was pretty impressive. Yep. And the Brad Andre family of $500 to the music department. We'll move to the administrator reports then and begin with Mr. Baer.
Thank you very much. My report contains a lot of information about the reopening plan, and I know that's part of our board conversation tonight. But some of the details that I shared with you are in virtual attendance, those students attending, and we complete our reports a week before. So I just wanted to make a correction there. At about this point last week, we had 15 students. We have had an increase in requests for students virtually attending this week. But I believe those students are still around 25 or 30 students. I also just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our staff and our students for following the masking requirements. I have been really very impressed with our students' willingness to participate and to wear masks appropriately. I thought it would be a tremendous challenge for them, and it is, to wear this for 8 hours a day. It's uncomfortable, it's itchy, it's hot, it's all those things. But our kids have really tried their hardest. Of course, we always want to do better, and there are areas for improvement, but I've been very impressed, and I want to thank our student bodies for doing that. The other detail that I wanted to share tonight is that I'm working with our homecoming advisors to try to make that a special celebration. Obviously, we have several challenges that we need to overcome this year. But we involved our students this week, Wednesday, it was just yesterday, in talking about what that might look like and how it might look different. And we said we really can't pull this off without your creative ideas and openness to trying new things. So the traditions that we have for homecoming may change a little this year, but I'm already pleased to hear some of the ideas that our kids have, and I'm hoping that some of those things can be possible. But we knew we had to move it back, so right now we're looking at the week of 26th through the 30th of October, which is right around Halloween, so some fun things can be done with that. But just one of the many ideas is the kids asked if they could paint their parking spots. And I thought, that's so cool, because we're going to tear up that parking lot anyways. Paint away, that's how I'm thinking. But that's just one of the ideas. We'll work on many others as we go through this, but the kids have been cooperative in helping us, and just like our staff has always done, which I've appreciated so much. We're not going to cancel anything. We didn't last year. We're not going to do that this year. We're going to instead look for alternatives, and I know that you guys were witness to that last year. So I still appreciate our staff for doing these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hills?
Thank you. I'd like to echo some of the things that Mr. Baer said. Our students are doing an excellent job, even at the younger grades, of trying to follow those guidelines that our teachers have set forth for them. Really taking that Pioneers take care of one another to heart. And I feel like a broken record, but I think it's important to say that our staff, I can't say enough, that they are being flexible, that they are being resilient in this time that's very, very difficult. None of this is anything that they signed up for or expected, but keeping students at the forefront of their minds and their actions, they really, really are working hard, and I would just like to give kudos to them for that. I'd also like to bring to the forefront the shirts that the PTO is sponsoring this year. We've done that the last couple years. This year is a little bit different in that the PTO reached out and had some students design the front and back of the shirts. They turned out awesome, and we sent forms home this week for families to order those or get their information in so we can order the free shirts. But this year we're doing it a little bit different. We're also including an opportunity for families to purchase shirts if they would like. And I'll make sure that Missy sends out order forms to all of the board members as well, so that you can take a look at that and, if you'd like to order a shirt. Graham Killenberg and Isaac Hazel are the two students that designed the winning logos for the front and back of the shirt. So thank you very much to the PTO for sponsoring that again this year.
Thank you. Ms. Melford?
I want to be the third administrator to say how.
Color Melford.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
worries. No worries.
Sorry.
You know what? It things that happens all day long. It's okay. No lessons too. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I want to be the third person just to echo the incredible energy and hard work that the staff is putting forth through this time. It really has been inspiring to work alongside such hardworking people. So the staff really are stepping up, and it's been really, really extraordinary to watch and be a part of. So my continued thanks to everybody that is here at Sevastopol and doing what they're doing at this time. But in addition to my report, I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. Typically the month of September is when I do all of our 504 plans, and I meet with all the families and transition our students to the next teacher team. So I've been busy this month updating all the 504 plans. And the reason that I bring it up is because we have so many of our students who, not so many, but a significant amount of students who are transitioning into the virtual world. So really it has forced us to look deeper into how we can accommodate students with diverse needs in the virtual setting. So working with the teaching staff and the special education staff to make sure that whatever learning environment that they are, that they're fully supported. So we learned a lot in March when we closed our doors, but now we have an opportunity to increase those supports. So I've been busy working on that. And that's all I have for today.
I like your mental health moments.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, they're important, and noticed how much especially during this difficult time, that a lot of the staff are really taking advantage of those, and you know, it's been neat to support them in that way. You know, for them to open up and just be vulnerable about where they are and what kind of supports that they're going to need. So we're going to continue that throughout this entire year and then beyond, because we've seen just how critical it is to at least have that for staff to be able to, and students, you know, for those resources, for the staff and the students and the resources that they need through this tough time.
For anyone listening online who doesn't know what that is, every day on the daily announcements, there's a short mindful moment or something to do to calm yourself, relax yourself. It's kind of neat. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Lutke.
I have a question, Melissa. A question. Melissa, I was surprised that there were 6 students that were signed up for Stride. I actually thought that there would be more. Are you surprised at that number, or?
Well, so what happens with that? So there were students who were seen at the end of the year, and our provider made the attempt to still engage with them, and some of them have decided not to. So we have a couple of recurring, but we have names coming in. So, you know, as of right now, I'm definitely up to 5 again. You know, but there will be a list. So the students who are returning, it was a very simple process, a consent form really, and a release form. But new students is the entire enrollment process, which takes a little bit longer. I anticipate that all those spots are going to be filled very quickly. And you know, the first day is actually this coming Tuesday. You know, so there'll be 4 students seen, and then the rest are in process.
Thank you.
Actually, we're going to ask Mrs. Tank to step forward and do her athletic gift and talent report. If you have
Sure, I can.
Something to report.
Trying to squeeze in here. I have been busy in the athletic world here, just trying to stay abreast with all the things that are new and ever changing with us. We have started all of our fall sports and we have outstanding participation at every single level in every single sport. We have been successful to have no positive athletes from July on. I would just like for the record to say that our coaches are doing an outstanding job of taking those protocols, putting them in place, and keeping our athletes accountable to our mask requirements, our social distancing, the cleaning that they have to do before practices, during practices, after practices, dealing with students who may be on a quarantine and how that affects their practice plan. So they really have done an outstanding job. The athletes themselves have done an outstanding job of knowing their role, knowing what they can't do, their mobile locker rooms, bringing their own water bottles, just going through the daily screening, all of that stuff. And so it's been a challenge, but it's easy with the staff that I have. We have been ordering many new uniforms that we identified that we had to get through our summer inventory process this year. Our coaches have completed many of their WIAA testing requirements. I have started sending out F-list reports to our middle school coaches. So every Friday, students are notified if they do not have a passing grade. And the teacher, the student, the coach, and the parent all have to sign on the form and make a plan for how they're going to raise their grade for the next week. Let's see. I've also been busy evaluating resources for broadcasting our games if we do so have games in the future. This fall season, it's going to be important that we have a virtual format, so if fans are not allowed to attend, that our community and our parents can still see those games. We're also busy preparing ourselves to host 3 home cross-country meets. Sevastopol hasn't hosted a cross-country meet in probably over 12 years?
Yeah.
12 years. And so with the way the conference schedule had to get completely redone, I volunteered us and Cherry Hills welcomed us. And so we will host 2 regular meets, and we will be hosting the girls' conference cross-country meet at Cherry Hills. So we're busy trying to get that organized. I have organized all game crews for the fall and found routine workers for most sports. So that has been exciting. And you know, we just continue to deal with the changes that are coming our way. And I would say our athletes they're getting anxious to understand what's going to happen with their competitions. Coaches are, you know, trying to figure out how to prepare for things, prepare for the events, prepare their athletes. And the mental piece of it is the hard part of the preparation. They're seeing, you know, athletes leaving, classmates leaving throughout the day. They are seeing other schools around them playing. They are seeing they're seeing all this stuff, and there's lots of why. And so I've been trying to coach the coaches on what to talk to their kids about and making sure that they're keeping their mental health at the forefront of all of this. On the gifted and talented side of things, in August I met with all of our students, all of our families that were identified as gifted and talented, and we went through their learning profiles and talked about how the school year is going to begin for them. I have also met with all of the new students to our district who identified themselves as coming from an accelerated program or believing that their child has accelerated abilities, and we have all sat down and we have met what the plan will be. Melissa and I have also established when we will test our students, which is the beginning of October. We're looking for October 4th, 5th, and 6th. So all teachers in grades 3 through 11 right now have criteria that they need to use to recommend new students for the fall testing deadline. And that information will be given to me next week so we can make parent contacts. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. Questions?
A question. I believe Door County is back in the high category now again, the last I saw at least.
Correct.
How is that impacting competition?
Yeah, so all counties are actually in high except for one right now. And so right now, because the school board has adopted the Packerland Conference guidelines, we cannot compete in any event because per our guidelines, we cannot compete unless we are in the moderate or low category. And that's the same for the school that we are competing against. So right now, all competitions, we've canceled things this week.
Really puts a damper on things, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it makes scheduling challenging and
Yeah.
rescheduling and finding officials. It's getting pretty late in the game to pick up new games. Most schedules are set a year in advance. So I think morale of the athletes is important as well.
Right.
You know, and it's hard to see for them other conferences competing in things.
Yeah.
So, but health and safety is important.
It's a challenge.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Lukey.
Sure. Yesterday I participated in a webinar with VPI and WASDA. The waiver forms that we may need this year for hours of instruction, days of attendance, and a variety of other things they've streamlined into one form. And you can apply for it in advance or when the event occurs or after the school year's over. It doesn't matter to DPI when you hand the waivers in, and they streamlined it quite a bit. They said don't check all the boxes and hand it in though, that'd be not needed necessary. There's about 37 of them out there. And then I've had a few fundraising requests. The FFA would like to still do their fruit sale for the Christmas time, and I think that one isn't necessarily for the FFA to make money, but it's more for our community because the people are used to purchasing that around Christmas time. The other organizations, PTO, would like to do their clothing drive sales like they always do, and box tops for education, and Econo Food slabs. So I think those we should approve for them to do those. I don't know about other organizations doing it because we don't know who's going to do what. For example, like the fifth graders for the trees tomorrow, that got pushed from fall to spring, but we're still not sure if they're going to actually get to go in spring. So I don't know if we need to have a fundraiser for that until we know the trip is on and items like that. But I do think the PTO and FFA, that's a little different ballgame there. Like I said, FFA is not doing it for the money, they're doing it for the service to the community. The other thing is, I've had a couple of requests about what the 21-22 school calendar will look like because our band trip was supposed to be to New York this spring, and of course they're going to push that off. And Mr. Hilbert usually has an 8th grade trip, and that would be up next year as well. So October, I'd like to bring the school calendar to the board with a couple different options. We won't start the 21 school year until September 7th because they need it to finish up the new edition. So it's a late start. And we'll kick it on Ed team in the next couple weeks, but we haven't gotten it to it on our plate yet, but we'll get there. So.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay, Property Building Security Committee, September 2nd.
Yeah, Lisa, Dave, Dick, Matt.
Dave, do you want to talk about that? Dave Kaczmarski, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here to talk about come again.
The Building and Grounds Committee meeting.
Well, in brief, I guess, we went over the 5-year, 10-year plan, and we started talking about what we're going to look at. I guess I didn't have all my details ready for this yet, so.
I think the important thing out of that was that there was a number of items, and we sent it back to Mr. Lutke asking him to prioritize safety, academic safety, and then would like to have, which he is working on.
I've had a few bids for a couple parts of the project of things on the list, and I have it almost 3/4 done.
I don't know, yeah, most of it is long-range, looking at long-range projects. I think the gymnasium, the sound acoustics project is something we really have to get on top of and look at that. You know, the town ball field situation for baseball, taking a look at that field, the whole drainage situation there is it was not well designed from the start. And I think there's something we can do to alleviate that without a lot of input, expenditures, to improve that a lot. So I think that's a project that we can easily look at.
And when we get to athletic committee, Keith can give an update on that. But, so we sent it back looking for those items, academic and safety, to be prioritized. Lunch committee? I don't know who's on lunch committee.
Jerry's on it, and Jerry, Casey, and I met a couple days earlier than our meeting. The federal government changed. They extended the summer lunch program that was on last spring through December 31st of this year. So all students can have free breakfast and lunch now. Casey and his crew have breakfasts at H's doorway coming in. And so it's a bag breakfast with the milk, and the kids can grab it and eat it in the first hour of class. And lunches are in individual containers this year, and those are free as well from December 31st. And so that's going pretty well. He's also selling lunches to the construction crew because it's easier for them to buy one here than go someplace else. And yeah, so he's had to adjust with the deliveries and those things, but it's going well. He still is looking for part-time help in the kitchen. We haven't been able to find anybody for the position. No applicants.
Just another good example, I think, of how people have adjusted to this situation and really stepped up and done a great job.
Yeah, the kitchen staff did it in the spring when we went remote, and they've had to roll a couple times during the fall already, so yeah.
Okay, athletic committee.
Well, Dave and I, Adam and Brooke met Monday. The agenda was in the notes or in our board packet. The part dealing was we plan with them. Brooke is meeting with Marquine on a somewhat regular basis to make sure things are being handled. We talked about the attendance plan.
What?
We talked about the attendance plan.
Yes, we did talk about attendance at the events. Yep.
Fan attendance, what that might look like if we are able to compete.
A big part of our discussion revolved around the Packerland's direction for our conference and how we might need to be flexible with our plans so that we can best position our students and our school to have an opportunity to play at some point, whether that be in the fall or the spring. We are a little bit subject to the conference's decision, only because if they decide to move, we have nobody to play. That takes our entire schedule. So we do have to kind of work with them to a certain extent, but right now the limitations are such that we don't see the statewide health or the local county health getting to a point where we can play games under certain parameters, the parameters that we set at this point. So we're going to re-meet tomorrow as a conference. The principals are meeting tomorrow. We have recommendations from the athletic committee, I do, and from Brooke and I. We've been talking about this. Mr. Lidke has been involved in that conversation ongoing. And so we're going to go and have that discussion tomorrow, and really, we have to make a decision sooner or later, because if we have 50% of our practices or 50% of our contests, that constitutes an entire season. So we could practice for 50% of the year and not play a single game, and our season would end. We don't want that for any of our kids, so we've got to make a decision on what direction we're going to go to support our position and our school to the best of our ability. So I think we're going to talk a little bit more about it in our reopening plan tonight.
And that's by per sport as well. Each sport can make a different path on that.
Absolutely. That's been the case in some districts, even at our conference. They've decided to move some of their sports and then maintain some of their fall sports. So there's a variety of different directions that we, after the decision by the conference is made, we'd like to be able to do what is best, I guess, for our kids so that they have opportunities. I think that was the discussion, Keith. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
I think what we came up with was, being that the conference meeting is tomorrow and we meet tonight, that we could maybe modify our original motion or approval of following the Packerland guidelines to a T, and maybe give the administrative team some flexibility to deviate somewhat or whatever is best for their kids.
So, and we'll discuss that during the reopening plan.
Yeah. The difficult part there was, last time we agreed to go with what the Packerland did, and it was unanimous vote by the Packerland, and then multiple school districts in the conference went their own tangents, and that broke up the conference basically into different directions. United, it was fine, divided they fall, and so we end up at the mercy of others because of who we can and can't play, because we're geographically limited to who we can play up here.
And I'll just go on record too to say that, you know, for example, football, we had one school that was left in our pod to play, and that was Algoma. So Brooke had to go and find non-conference games, and she called, I think, 31 schools in order to find 3 other non-conference games to give us a total of 4 games. Now I think it's up to 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke, but you know, there's 6 now. So there's a tremendous amount of challenges. But we need to be flexible and understand that, you know, there might be different opportunities that we can take advantage of if we don't follow everything as specific as it's been stated.
We also did talk about masking with the governor's orders, if they are removed on the 28th, but some recommendations we would give.
Anything else on athletic committee?
Well, like I said, the agenda was in there.
I have a comment at the meeting.
Okay,
The only thing I was gonna say is, giving the school flexibility, because we're showing our staff is doing a great job, I just support that. And the other thing I would offer to the admin team and the AD, you know, as we go forward and some schools pull out, I think we should recognize that we don't have to fill in every void. I mean, the mental health and all the benefits of exercising and working with the team will still be there if the competitions are limited. I get the benefit of the competitions, but I guess that burden may never end. I just threw out there that an expectation that if teams are pulling out because it's going to change all the time, if we're moving forward with the schedule, we need to appreciate that some holes will not be filled, because if not, your workload would never end. And I don't think it would be reasonable with all the other workloads we already have. That's all I was adding.
okay, thank you. We'll move on then to the facilities, the existing building and the building project.
Budget report.
Oh, the budget first.
Okay. Carl gave you a summary sheet. Highlighting on there is the Dorothy Treasurer sent us the final payment for the 1920 school year. So the school year ends June 30th, but we don't receive the payment until August, and that was $2.9 million. Also, if you look under Fund 49, that is our building project budget there, and we had revenue of $12,430 for the month of August. That's the interest of the money that's been sitting there. And for the year to date, which is as of July 1, you'll see it's $93,000. So you'll wonder, well, how can you get $12,000 in the month of August, but in 2 months you got $93,000? It's because of the way we have the CDs stacked. Because now as we start paying our bills, we have to have more liquidation cash available for when the bills come in for the building project. So far to date, we've spent $7.5 million on the building project. Just this last week, we got a bill for $2.3 million. So we need to be more cash fluid there in that fund now. So that's how that rotates like that.
Questions on the budget?
Existing building, we are working on the elementary gym, still trying to wrap that up. The bathroom for the girls' bathroom that was flooded is back open, must have been this week. Can't remember what day it opened up, but it's back up and running. The isolation room right next to it, everything's been redone except the carpet has to be reinstalled. So that's moving forward. And then the building project, like I said, we paid $7.5 million up to date. Last night, the administrative team took a tour of the facilities. Next week, the early childhood 4K and 5K are touring it with Myron at 4:30 on Wednesday. Their biggest hurdle right now is to get it all framed in and ready for winter, so they can do interior work all winter. They're on schedule. They said that summer always goes faster than they think, but they should get it there. So we have an allotment of $200,000 for winter expenses, for heating it and framing it up and such. So every window they get in, everything they can do, better off we are in that area. And then we hope for a cold winter. But yeah, I can't think of anything else in the building going on.
Sue, did you have anything timely to add to your legislative report?
I just want to point out the one statement in there that the mask order is set to expire on the 28th of this month, so I assume Kyle will be addressing that.
During our reopening plan, absolutely, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, okay. Then the other thing I wanted to mention is the Region 3 meeting, which is scheduled for October 20 at 7 o'clock. But because there is an election in our region this year, the regional meeting for us will start at 6:30 for the voting. So that's important to note. As you know, I am running and I do have an opponent. So I would appreciate, I assume, Lisa, you will be casting the vote for the district?
Can we cast we have to attend?
Have to be online, yes.
Oh, it's an online meeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is online.
What is the
Everything
date?
is virtual.
What is the date of that?
October 20 at 6:30 p.m. And there will be more information coming out on how to do that. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. We'll move then to our old business, second reading of some policies. We looked at these last month, had them to review, approve the first reading, and we'll just look for a motion to approve the second reading of these policies. We'll begin with 3230 and 4230.
Move to approve the second reading policies 3230 and 4230, conflict of interest. Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Jean, if we move too fast, just tell me to slow down.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you're doing great.
You're not taking notes. You're not taking the minutes, Mr. Cack. 3340 and 4340.
Move to approve the second reading of policy 3340 and 4340 grievance procedure.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 3362 and 4362.
Move to approve 3362 and 4362 employee anti-harassment.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 3419.02 and 4419.02.
Move to approve second reading policy 3419.02, 4419.02, privacy protections of fully insured group health plans.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 3430 and 4430.
Move to approve the second reading of policy 3430 and 4430, leave of absence.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 3431 and 4431.
Move to approve second reading of 3431 and 4431 employee leaves.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will then look to review the reopening plan for the 2021 school year.
But I think the first item should be, like Sue said, the masking order from the governor ends on the 28th of September. Here we are on September 17th. And with the governor's order expiring, the board policy of having masking for students and staff still is in effect until you take action to remove it. My recommendation would be to keep with the masking. I'm very impressed with the students' ability to keep it on. And I don't know, since the first 2 days of school, I don't think we've got a problem with students doing it. I think it's just essential at this point for a school to stay that way, regardless of what happens with the governor on the 29th of September.
I think we just have to be more conservative for our students. Is there any,
And staff, yeah, absolutely.
and staff, is there any disagreement with that? So we don't need to take any action on that?
No,
It stands.
if you stay the same, you don't have to take action, but you
Yeah.
gotta be aware of what the fact that the times are changing with the 28th of September coming up, so that's fine, no action, you just stay the same. And then we've had 4 COVID cases amongst our student bodies since Sunday, and that's resulted in us sending 53 students home. And that's about what, public health told us, that for every time we have a positive, they said that their contacts are usually 9 to 22 people, and so that's what we're averaging. We're averaging about 13 and a half then. As an admin team, we sat down this afternoon after dismissal and said, okay, how can we keep doing this? Because we're sending, the student goes home sick, and then we're sending anyone that's in contact with them, and we're sending 12, 13 people each time, and we're losing our student body, been over 50 out. Can we keep this pace going, and where do we end up? And we talked to the team, and we came up with, we'd like to switch to the AB model, because the first 2 weeks we did that, we could do more social distancing, and less kids would qualify for the close proximity, because close proximity is within 6 feet for a duration of 15 minutes or longer within a 24-hour period. So if you go in someone's 6-foot bubble 3 times for 5 minutes each, you add it up and you get to 15, you're out. Well, we have our seating charts for the kids and where they move about and such. We were much better at social distancing when we were at half the students here, A and B. Also at that time, the number of active cases was down to single digits, but now since Labor Day, I think we were at 45 last time I saw it. We were like 9 when the school year started. So we did okay. Now the number of cases is up, and we keep sending home kids, and it's hurting their education, because we know now we have more kids learning remotely, and they're out for 14 days. So like the students that went home today can return on September 29th, is that right? Yeah, it's in September, but it's going down the way. So our recommendation is go back to the AD schedule. We would like to have all remote learners on the same day, probably a B day, because Monday you teach your A lessons, the second day on Tuesday you teach the same lessons to the B students. The second time through a lesson usually goes smoother than the first time, and that's when you want to have the extra load of the other students in the class that are remote. Reach out, plus if you have them all in the same group, you're not worried on the A day about reaching out to those students that are remote. My recommendation to the staff will be, don't try and get through 100% of your curriculum on an A-B schedule, because you just can't do it at the same pace if you're only seeing the students every other day. We'll give them some work for the day they're off, but you can't expect them to log in, because even with the hotspots that Stephen, and you handed out 25 of all?
23 of our
23, okay, of our 30 hotspots as we've purchased. So we are reaching out and getting that better coverage for those kids, but you can't expect them to go in remote when they're not on their day. That's just going to be too much, and it's going to be easier for the staff if we go to that AD schedule. We'd like to stick with that through first quarter, which is October 30th. That way we're not wondering what we're doing all the time. We stick with it through first quarter, and as we get to the end of first quarter, we can analyze where the county's at. Also, Additionally, with the students here on an AB schedule, public health will keep notifying us of the positive cases because it's going to keep happening. We got 650, 700 people with staff and students, and we know those cases. If we see that case rate start dropping, then we may be in a little better shape come the end of October. We may not, and we may still have to continue on the AB route, but we think it's important for those kids to be in school as much as possible. But right now, we're sending kids home every other day. And then it's also a struggle for parents to figure out daycare when, for example, when we're on an AB schedule, some of the younger students could get babysat by an older sibling or a neighbor that's in high school on their off day. But now when we send home the 19 first graders on this weekend, they don't have the older sibling at home because they're not required to go home because the student who has been tested positive is the primary person. The ones they come in contact with are secondary. The ones beyond that are tertiary. So if you're in first grade and you're in contact with that kid, you go home, but your older brother or sister doesn't because they're not secondary. And so this would keep families unified and be a little better system. We're very fortunate we've only sent one staff member home because of close proximity, but it's very difficult if you work with a student one-on-one, and especially at the elementary level, those kids come up to you all the time at your desk and such. Middle school, high school, it's a little easier to have them farther apart. And with the close proximity, even if both people are wearing masks and there's a plastic divider between you, that doesn't count. 6 feet is still 6 feet, 15 minutes is still 15 minutes, so it doesn't matter what barriers you put between it. They say, yeah, it's nice, it's good to have, but that doesn't negate the ruling on who has to go home. So that's, I don't know, Administrator, anything else I'm missing on this?
No, I think from my perspective, that's been the biggest frustration with the situation is thinking that the distance would be less because they're masked, because that is something that had been shared with us in the past, and then finding out that no, the measurement is going to be that 6 foot distance. And we all know, we knew going in that our classrooms are too small for us to really create that 6 foot distance the way that we would like to. And so it's not something brand new, but it's something that was unexpected in terms of putting the plan together. So I would agree that that AB provides that opportunity for us to spread.
And we've been trying really hard to space our students out, but we just don't have enough physical space to do that. I went in a couple classrooms tonight in an attempt to help teachers that had asked me for some additional help, and I brought a tape measure. And I stood in the middle of the classroom at a desk, and I just spun a 6 foot radius with that tape measure to show them all the students that would be in contact. And it really is telling when you see that happen. You know, you can see the number of kids that would be affected just because they went to their assigned seat in their classroom. You know.
So is that something you propose to implement Monday?
Right, we would inform the staff yet tonight in the email, then the parents know tomorrow so they can start working on it. We've told our parents all along that they have to be flexible and be ready for this. We do have the calendar with the AB schedule on there. It's going to be tough because when we made the calls on Sunday for the first grade class, you could hear it in the voice of the parents going, okay, they understood it, but the same thing, they're thinking, what am I doing with my child tomorrow and the next day? What do I do? So at least here they'd have a plan that they'd have the same resources they had the first 2 weeks of school when we were on an AB schedule. The other disappointing part through this process was we've been told from public health that the people that are in close proximity, the contacts, they would reach out to those individuals and notify them. And so far, our administrative team has made all those phone calls to all those parents to say, hey, because public health says, gee, we don't have their contacts, we can't get to them in time, and we can't tell a kid, hey, you have to come to school tomorrow or you're going home now without contacting their parents. So that burden is fallen on us from public health, and we thought we'd get a little more assistance from public health in that regard, and we haven't. And in fact, the letter I wrote today compared to their first two didn't say that public health would reach out to you, because public health told us today they can't reach out to everybody that's in direct contact with someone. They just don't have they're getting overwhelmed with their number of cases too. So basically we're on our own to notify. The concerning part to me is someone who tests positive the people they run into that aren't part of the school, if they go to church or some organization or something, then I guess we can't worry about all that. We'll worry about our student body and our staff. But, I don't know, but that's a burden that's been placed on, we were all calling Dina Saunders and Mary Jackson, and very extremely helpful with contacting the Hispanic families, because none of the four of us have the ability to make those phone calls. So it's just been a real struggle this week with that.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
In addition to just contacting families, both the EL department has been really instrumental in making numerous phone calls to make sure that the family knows how to log on and how to do everything that the virtual learning does entail. So it's been it's been a lot to make sure that our Spanish-speaking families know how to do what they're being asked to do. And the other thing I'd like to say too is we did have a discussion too about the AP schedule, and then some of our students with learning needs, and how we can modify the day so they get more of that direct instruction, because that's what they do need. So taking in account of those students who need that face-to-face and making those individual decisions if those students need to come to school more frequently to get the instruction that they need, because the virtual and the being at home is not meeting what they need.
So basically our AB schedule, but then there may be some kids who are every day, but those would be limited to the students that have an IEP.
How is the compliance rate with the login procedure?
Compliance with the what?
We got the login procedure working?
We are treating it as in the same way that we would treat in-person attendance, that they are getting the same amount of absences or absence requests in the same way. But there is usually a grace period for them to learn how to do that appropriately.
Oh.
Our teachers have been wonderful at practicing with kids, so we now have instructions with class codes, Google Meets. It's about a 6 or 8 page document that goes home with the student that explains everything that they need to do to get logged on. So that turnaround is sometimes just to drive home and a half an hour later they're on with us, which is great. But the challenge continues to be internet and connectivity, because to host a Google meeting takes a certain amount of memory and good internet connection, and we see some delays. So there's still challenges that we can't overcome, but we're doing the best we can.
And what happened this week is those kids get sent home, and then, for example, today it was up in 5th grade. The 5th grade teachers now have 8 kids that are remote learning till the 29th of September that they didn't have before, and you got kids on different planes then here at school and there, so it's difficult.
If I could, just kudos to Stephen though for how quickly he's able to respond. As we've had those phone calls with families, questions we ask your internet connection ability and are there devices? And I've been pleased that a lot of them have had access and devices, but when they don't, we reach out to Stephen, and literally within minutes, we've got one down in the office, and so when the parent comes to pick up the child, we've got those things ready to send home, so thank you.
Are the teachers given some kind of, like, you had made reference to, it's not important to get through all their curriculum, it's not feasible to do that. Is there some kind of, are kids going to fall behind? I know other school districts are in the same boat as we are, but with this halftime schooling, are kids going to fall behind?
Yeah, they won't cover as much material. Right.
But
It'll be better than it was in the spring, but yes, it's going to be, absolutely.
What's important that they know?
Teachers will have to narrow their focus on what students are working on. I know, for example, we had one in 1st grade classroom that went home, and rather than having the kids online for 5-6 hours, we narrowed that time down so that they were in a morning window and focused on the reading and the math subject areas. As long as you can do those 2 things, you're going to be able to get caught back up on the other stuff later in your career. But without the math and without the reading, you really are going to fall behind. So that would be the focus.
With the older kids though, like high school kids, I guess, I'm all for whatever you guys recommend. I just wonder how long this, you cut a school year in half. I know it's just October 30th you're proposing, but what happens in October? and we go till January.
Mhm.
And then January we go to April, whatever, I mean, what did, last year when school was shut down, we went to a virtual model, which wasn't perfect, but it was a daily occurrence, you know, like I guess I'm just looking over.
The trade-off is being able to see our kids here in person, and like you heard Dr. Fogarty say, the abuse and the mental illness and that spiked in those 3 months. And so the trade-off, there's got to be some trade-off. So you know what you're saying is, hey, can you get through all the curriculum if you had class every single day? You won't get through as much online as you would in person, and you won't get through as much in person every other day. And what I'm saying is they should have some homework for next day. We can't just pound on them and say, okay, you get through it 2 days worth of stuff, because when you send them off the next day, one kid gets it done, one gets partway done, one gets confused, and now it's not even. So you gotta give it so it's workable for the average student. And that's always how it's been, is the average student, because
Can you pilot on the above average students? So they don't.
you can, and that's why we have a gifted and talented teacher now, right? We didn't have that before this year. So those kids will get extra attention.
But those are only the gifted, the identified
just-
gifted and
Yeah,
talented.
that's
There may
about
be
a
other
dozen.
students
Yeah,
out
that's-
there that,
That don't fit that gifted and talented criteria,
Right.
whether they're, and, you know, I just.
I guess it
You mean
is
like
like
an
an
advanced
IEP
class?
in reverse. You do the learning plan for the student that struggles. Do you have a different learning plan for the student that can move more quickly than?
I think what you're talking about is differentiation, and our teachers all have strategies to differentiate their content. And so I think we all encourage that as part of this process. I think Mr. Lidkey's statement and all of our statements is an honest statement, though, that you can't cover everything in the same ways in
And
a
I
50%
understand
model.
that.
But I can tell you that it will not because of a lack of effort by anybody. The one thing that I worry about is, you know, if we really have a virtual component as part of our AB model, we know that we're leaving a percentage of our population behind because of the connectivity. And unfortunately, that line can sometimes be drawn socially, economically, and those are the students that lose out, unfortunately. Regardless of our ability to provide them hotspots, we've provided some family hotspots from the district, and they don't work. They bring them back the next day and say it's not a solution for us. So there really are challenges geographically and socially, economically in our district that we can't overcome. So the AB model doesn't rely on that virtual component. It means we get to see kids. But if we keep quarantining kids, we can't see them. You know, if they're gone till September 29, we can't see them, we can't do anything. So now I have kids out there that are in need of a lot of support that I can't reach because there's no solution. And they're quarantined, so I can't, you know, we can't even go to their house and drop stuff off in the same way. It's really, really challenging. So I guess, I mean, I'm not trying to sway the decision one way or the other, but it's a hard decision to make. And Mr. Lidkey made a comment earlier, and I think we all know this, sometimes you got to do less, better, and deeper. And so that might be what it looks like. Our teachers are trained to pick out the most essential content standards and focus on those. But there will be, not only at Sevastopol, across the United States, a COVID gap that we have to overcome some way. And that's gonna take time. It won't happen in a week or a month, but it's gonna take time, so.
Well, and I would love to plow through with 100% attendance, but that's not wise at this point, because we know 100% attendance would be the best to deliver the instruction. But at the same time, we can't send home 12 kids, 13 kids at a crack here, because then we're doing those kids a disservice at that point. So it's bad. I mean, it's what
My
it is.
comments weren't intended to question the staff, because I think if any school is going to be okay, it's going to be Sevastopol because of the staff and its commitment.
And we're very fortunate that so far we've only had one staff member out because of close proximity. Bondwell, Barneveld, Menominee, Michigan, they've gone remote because they don't have enough teaching, and we are close. And we're 3 or 4 people away from having to go remote because we don't have enough bodies here because our sub-pool is,
Yeah, and I don't mean to correct you, but we've had 2 staff quarantined.
I don't know who the other one is, but okay.
English and special education.
Well, she's not because of close proximity to a student though.
she had close proximity to.
Not when we did it on Sunday,
Okay, all right.
right?
But in any regard, subs have been very challenging to find. They really have. We had unfilled positions every day this week except for today, so of unfilled subbing positions.
So are you looking, we need to take action if we're going to.
I would like to
have
take action to adopt the AB model beginning September 1, or September 21st through October 30th. And then I'd love to.
I have 3 questions if I may take it. Kyle, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So if you go into the AV model, are you saying you're gonna get the 6 foot of separation in the classroom?
Not 100% all day long, because there may be like a math class might have 26 kids enrolled in it, and one day, on an A day, they might have 18, and they may only have 8 the next day, you know, I don't know, whatever. It may not be an even split throughout the high school all day. For example, the one first grade classroom, we sent 19 home on Sunday. If we would have been on an AB schedule at that point, 9 or 10 would have gone home. So yes, so we will, well, 9 or 10 would have been present, and some of them could have been close proximity away. So yeah, our numbers would have gone way down. It won't be 100%, but it'll be significantly better than we have.
Because we'll have more cases, what you're saying is we'll send half as many kids home in that case.
Or we won't be sending, well, half the kids will be here, so they'll be exposed, but they may not be within that 6 feet bubble. So it'll be less, because like when we had a high schooler go home, we'd look at their schedule every other day and figure out there might be 2 in this class period and 1 in that class period, or 4 in another one, depending where they're seated in the class. But if there's half the kids there, then you can spread out, you can take that number and reduce it by even more than half, because there's no one sitting with it, because they can space out better.
Okay, the only other comment is, I mean, on a normal year, we do have kids that'll miss 2 weeks of school, being a very bad sickness, medical, or family chooses to travel, and that kid survives. Now, obviously, it's a very different animal, but it's just a 2-week thing, but what you're hedging is we're gonna get kids back and then send them home again.
Yeah, if we stay at 100%, I'm fully expecting that if we stay at 100% next week, we'll be sending another batch of students home. And some of these kids that come back September 28th, 29th, when their 2 weeks is up, a different kid in their class could have it, and they could be sitting, you know, this week it was someone on their right, the next week it's someone on their left, and that kid now misses a month of school rather than every other day. And how many times do you send a child home for, sorry, you're out for another 2 weeks? And they cannot get a COVID test when they've been in close proximity. That doesn't waive the 2-week quarantine, because they could on the 13th day show sign or develop symptoms. And so it doesn't, yeah, because we said, well, you know, one of the teachers we sent home, she said, well, can I get a test and come back? And the answer is no, because that test doesn't, you might take you 13 days to develop symptoms. So thanks for trying, but no, it doesn't work.
There's one last thing, and Keith was hitting on it, is we're going to do this. What is the education community going to do about our kids and next year? Are the curriculums going to change? Because we can't just kick these kids to the curb. So I would really like to find out or get a report, is DPI or what's our school doing? Because all our kids are going to be behind at the end of this year. So how does next year look? Has anyone talked about that? Is that not an issue? Or I'd certainly like people to start sniffing around on that if this is clearly, it sounds like what we're going to do.
Sure, so Dave, what you're saying is like if you're sitting in Algebra 1 this year and you're working through the Algebra 1 curriculum, how do you go to Algebra 2 next year, right? Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
And there's been no discussion with DPI about that. They just said it's local control, you figure it out. Each district sets their graduation requirements. You can have it more stringent than what DPI requires for a high school diploma. But you're right, there's going to be, I go to Algebra 2 and I'm going to say, boy, I'm not ready for Algebra 2, because, and our teachers are going to figure out where they drop them off and where they're going to pick them up at. That's the only thing you can do.
Right, I mean, it's going to affect our math testing at every level. It's going to affect your ACT, SAT testing.
It's going to affect every school across America that's dealing with COVID.
Start looking at it.
It's going to affect every school that's affected by COVID, which is everybody.
Right. But what,
Yeah.
There are no good options. really.
I mean, the other option we would have is if you want to go 100% remote, or if you want to keep plugging as we are, but we sent 53 kids home this week.
Yeah,
So we can do what you want,
no,
but those are your choices.
yeah,
And I don't have a fourth choice.
yeah, everybody's in the same boat, and the universities are too, and it's just a very challenging thing.
I mean, go and kick it around until you come up with something, but I don't know if Gibraltar's going fully remote. I don't know how that's going, if they're getting through as much curriculum as they would face-to-face. I can't imagine they are.
I can't imagine Gibraltar would be an any better service provider.
I do agree with your recommendation that the AV plan is
Very
the
geographic.
option, the way you assessed it.
Keith, what you're saying is
That
geographically correct.
all the schools and everybody's doing this, it wouldn't be hurt to send up some questions to organizations that might be able to start thinking about this for all the schools.
I mean, I'm fine with the AV, but I worry about, I have a junior in high school, where does that put her a year from now?
Right.
Absolutely.
All I can tell you is that she's in the same place as all the other juniors in the United States.
But
I know.
I want to know what Sevastopol is doing to, and I think you answered my question about they pick out what is the core stuff, and hopefully they, it's,
Yeah.
Can I add something? I mean, with the potential, when we say it's a local control about what Sevastopol can do about it, maybe we look at summer programming a little bit different. Maybe we look at different opportunities to be able to fill those gaps instead of saying, oh, well, like like all the other juniors in the United States, but Sevastopol can do something different. This community can do something different, and maybe now is the time to think about maybe what are some of those other opportunities that we can give our students to at least eliminate some of the loss. So I think that there are things that we can do as a community, and now's a good time to start thinking about that.
that's all I'm asking.
One wild idea would be going year-round schooling, 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off, and keep going, because right now, we go the way we do because of agriculture. And then because state law, because of tourism, we moved it to September 1st. But if you went year-round, that's a major mindset change. Well, we'd have limited space for part of the summer, because that's coming down, and that's not going to be ready for occupancy right away. So there's a time gap there, but we could use the 1965 part of the building.
Well, I guess let's do whatever till the 30th.
I guess we need to make a decision about AV tonight, and maybe that year-round school is something the team talks about a little bit more as we move forward. I add one more thing to your plates, I know. Do we want to make a motion one way or the other here on on returning to the AB schedule on Monday?
I would move that we return to the AV schedule on Monday, the 21st.
Through
Through October,
30th, that's the first quarter.
October 30th.
And of
first
course, we'll
quarter.
review it in October too.
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Will lunches then, will they be sending lunches home with the A kids will take a lunch home for
That
AB
was
day?
the original plan, was they send it, they could go home the day, and it's gonna be easier for Casey now that they're all paid for through December. They go, and he'll have to get in motion on this, but he'll do it the easiest way possible. But I believe you go home on an A day, you'll have your B breakfast and lunch with you. And that'll be available for all. And then when you go home on a B day, you'll get them, and Wednesdays are alternating, so there'll be some times when the student will go home with 2 days worth of lunches and breakfasts, yes. Right, so the food will be available for those students.
Do we need any action on that, or?
No,
it's
because
just-
that's part of the plan we had,
Okay.
that came to providing lunches.
Kyle, who's the keeper of the orchestration of the schedule? This many kids went home and their return date is this, and
Well, we contacted public health, and we said, okay, what day was the last day the students were here? Because usually we get it a couple days later, because they've already been home waiting test results. So we get a call from public health with our school nurse, and then depending what grade level the student is, Mr. Bear and Mr. Hilt start with the students, and then I go talk to the teachers, and I go to each teacher and say, okay, were you within close proximity? We make that determination. So I work with staff on who's here and not, and they work with the students, and then we call them down, and we get a letter from the public health, and basically it just says you're out until you may return on this day, and then we gather their work, the parents can pick them up, they make the phone calls, and then I send a letter out to all the parents saying, hey, we have a COVID case, but I think our parents should be aware when we have something in our building, which was a little bit of fight in the beginning with public health back in August, because they didn't want to let out personal information, but I think we have a right to let our parents know that we have a case within our building, so we don't put their name in it. We say, you know, upper grade school or high school or lower elementary. We don't identify exactly who it is, so. Because I think we looked at our families for that much, otherwise they wonder. And the kids, you can tell when they get called down to the office, or when I stop in the room, they have to talk to the teacher and say, hey, how close were you with this kid on Tuesday? How close were you on Monday? And you go through that. You can see the tension in the students' eyes as they sit there wondering, am I going home? How sick is this person? And of the ones we do have out right now, none are hospitalized. So they're not sick. I mean, they're sick, but they're not, it's not,
ICU.
they're not in the hospital. They're at home. Every student we have is at home. So that's a good thing. But then again, that's frustrating for the others that say, boy, they're not that sick and I'm not sick at all, but you're sending me home. Yeah, that's the way it is right now. Most of our families, well, they say 97%, 98% are very understanding when we call them. They're pretty wondering what they're going to do, but they are pretty understanding.
I appreciate you walking us through that craziness. But I guess my question was more related to, like, Johnny is off for 50-some days, and this child's off this many days, and can return on this day. I mean, just the orchestration of all of that and keeping track of all of that.
Well, when we get done, we give a list of all the close proximity students, their parents, and a phone number to Department of Public Health. Department of Public Health wants it in case one of those kids develops symptoms and is tested positive, then they can have a tracing, but they're not using it to contact the people. They just want it in case they get a call in to say, okay, that's associated with this case here. Because so far, all of our cases have been independent of, they haven't come from each other. It hasn't been spreading through the school. It's at different grade levels, but it's not spreading into school. It's not a, you know, they've been at 4 different grade levels. And
Hey, guys, Jack, I'm
Yep.
curious if she's asking the question of who in the school is tracking it. So a parent calls up and says,
Yeah, we know.
He's been out for a while, when does he come back?
we get a letter telling them what day, and we know.
Some nurses keeping track.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, we have a spreadsheet. We know who's going home, yeah. We know when they're allowed to come back. But it's 53 kids right now.
What else on the opening plan do we have to?
Athletics. Like I said earlier, the board approved staying with the Pac land. That was my recommendation last month when all the schools stayed aligned together. But then when other school districts went off on their own tangents, it doesn't work. I mean, we're united together, united we stand, divided we fall, and that's what's happening at the conference. It's falling apart. Tomorrow, Mr. Bear has a meeting with the principals. They may or may not make a decision tomorrow because some of them may want to go back to their superintendents and school boards on Monday. So we may not get any results out of his meeting tomorrow, and yet our student body athletes are sitting there waiting, our coaches are waiting, and there's no, so what I'm saying is we can't wait for the Pac-Land anymore. They didn't stick together. How many teams are at conference?
9.
9, and at least 3 tangent off, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so then it breaks it up and we can't do it, so we have to do our own here. It should be a per sport, per sport decision. For example, if we had a number of one of the teams become tested positive, they'd have close proximity to almost everyone else on the team, and that would wipe out your team and your season because you'd have 2 weeks of no play. We haven't had a athletic team affected by, we've had individual members because of contact off, but not the whole team yet, because they were secondary, they weren't tertiary. So if they get into primary, then we're gonna have teams that are gonna drop out. So we need the flexibility to see what the Pac line does. The Pac line puts us in a tight spot because of teams to play. Brooke has filled the lineup as best she can, and sticking with this high, medium, low, I don't know another conference that's doing it that way on what the counties rated. And when we wait Wednesday, the ratings come out, and you don't know what you're doing. Like, for example, the cross country would have ran, were they supposed to run tonight?
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't run tonight because we were high yesterday. But you can't do any planning and preparing because your Thursday night competition is based on what comes out on Wednesday, according to what the Pac line does.
Do you have a recommendation for us?
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead, keep
Yeah.
talking,
I
yeah.
mean, can I make a motion
Just break away from the conference.
to allow
That's your
administrative,
recommendation.
our administrative team, Kyle, Adam, Brooke, the flexibility to deviate if need be, whatever comes out of that. We won't know what happens in that meeting until after tonight, so can we as a board give them the flexibility to do what's best for our kids at our school?
Jean, you want to read the motion back?
Simplify
I'm
it.
still working on it, 1 second. So it's a motion to allow the administrative team the flexibility to do what's best for our athletes,
Right, rather than sticking to the fact.
rather than sticking to the Pac-Man conference.
If need be. I would, just to give them the flexibility to, what you said.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we should have some discussion on that, because now, as far as the low, medium, high, I'm okay if they start playing. I don't, with the fact that some of the teams have been practicing, the EDGE program going on in July, the screening they're doing ahead of time, I believe if they're playing with each other in practice and such, they're going to catch it from each other more likely than in a game when they're with the other team. Football game is what, 60 minutes long? Half that time you spend in the huddle. You don't spend it hitting each other and playing. The contact you have, we talked about 15 minutes of close proximity of being within 6 feet of each other. Yeah, you're going to come with 6 feet, but it's back up. I know there's sweat involved. They also have a helmet on. We are going to make our athletes wear masks the entire time. I know they'll fall down during a football game and the guy will have to pull it up. That's all part of it. I mean, we have kids sneezing their masks and we got to give them a new one during the school day too, so it's not perfect already. But I think our student athletes, for their mental health, should be allowed to play. And the low, medium, high, to me, doesn't matter. I haven't been able to figure out all summer when we're going to go from low, medium, or high. We were at high, and we had 18 active cases. We went down to 8, we went down to 4, and we still stayed in the high category. I mean, we've only come down to medium once since the 4th of July, and I don't know why that week we came down when we didn't do it another time. I can tell you we're going to go back to the high when we went up to 47 this last week, you know. So I'd say I'd let the kids play their games. Attendance at ball games for the crowd for inside, I would say no fans, because our gym gets pretty tight, and if you said 1 or 2 per player, we have 28 volleyball players, is that? And all of a sudden you take that times 2, you'll have the other team coming, and you've got to allow them the same as we have, and all of a sudden you got a full gym, and that's tight. So I don't like that. For outdoors, at a football game, I would say give 2 tickets per student, start there and see where we're at. I know football you can spread out. I also know how people are, because you go to the game and you see your neighbor, your friend, your cousin, and you end up sitting right by them. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone else. You know, and that's what I would do at a ball game. I'd go sit by someone and talk to them. So I think we got to limit the size of the crowd. Cross country, I'd go with 2 as well. They're They can spread out on the course, it's weird. You only can see a cross-country race at like 3 spots, beginning, once in the middle, once at the end. If you've ever been to cross-country, I mean, it's difficult. But that would be my recommendations on attendance. I don't know, Brooke and Adam, you speak up, but if you think
Yeah,
those numbers are ridiculous or not.
We would like to, if possible, to make a formal motion on that as far as masking for our athletes and as far as what you would expect at competitions. I think that's important for us to have your back when we have people trying to attend or not attend, or people trying to not mask. I think that's important. I just wanted to give you a couple statistics on for some sports that I feel is important for, this is from the WIAA, as a percentage of what schools have elected to participate in fall and what schools have elected to take their fall and move it to their alternate spring. The reason I want to share this information for you is if we decided to move to this alternate spring schedule, unless our conference goes with us, you'll see we don't have a lot of options to play. And those people that have already decided to move, they are already very busy making their schedules. And a lot of those schools that have decided to take their fall and move it to alternate spring, they are your larger schools, and they've moved as a conference. And so the competitive disadvantage they might put our kids at and the traveling that we may have to do is also a challenge. But I'd like to speak on behalf of our 8-player football team. Right now, like I said, we had to redo their entire schedule to basically, it's not a conference schedule anymore. And so 81% of the 8-man teams in the state have decided to do the fall season. That's 38 teams, and 19% have moved to the alternate spring, which is 9 teams. And so there's more opportunities to play right now. If we look at girls volleyball, 75% of schools have opted for the fall season, which is 354, and 25% have decided to go to the alternate fall, which is 120. Another sport that we host is cross country. So cross country has decided to, they have 82% in the state that have decided that they will compete in the fall, and only 18% have decided to move to the spring. This is an important piece from our cross-country coaches especially. We can't guarantee that spring is going to be better, but when we talk about field conditions, our cross-country season would actually start March 19th, I believe. We don't know, we could have a blizzard, we could have ice, we run on golf courses with spikes. So these places could very well tell us, no, you can't be here. Same would be true for our football team. To rip up that field is probably not a great idea. We also have, based on what the the WIAA has set up, the normal spring season and this new alternate fall season for many sports have a 2-week overlap. So that becomes a conflict for some of our athletes that are cross-country runners overlapping with track, or some of our softball players overlapping. There is an overlap between baseball and football. So scheduling for our gym spaces at that time and transportation will also be another large challenge. And so if you could give us the flexibility to make some changes and do what we feel is best, I know we would really appreciate that.
Soccer, you want to talk about boys soccer?
Yeah, our boys soccer program was really impacted because we co-op with Gibraltar. And so whatever Gibraltar does, our boys have to do, and so they decided to not have the fall season. And they will move to the alternate spring. So our boys, most of our soccer boys that would have gone to Gibraltar are now on our football team, all besides one. So kind of a unique situation for them. They could actually letter in 4 sports this year with the fall, the winter, the alternate spring, and the real spring. And
I got a question, can I?
Yep.
So, maybe this isn't appropriate, but so Gibraltar pushed their football back, and we all know the football players are playing down in Green Bay or Appleton, or some club. So if we're having soccer, and Gibraltar's pushed, why couldn't those families come down to our soccer field, just like those football players are going to Appleton? Now, is it because we're a school?
Because we're not the host school, Dave, for boys soccer, we're the host school for the girls soccer. So for the WIA, Gibraltar's the head school for soccer for boys, so we're stuck at their mercy because we're their partner. We're 50-50, but not exactly in the eyes of the WIA. And it's the opposite in the spring with the soccer for the girls. We're the host there, so it's 50-50, but we got the end decision.
I think the other thing I would add to what Dave just said is that with Sturgeon Bay and Gibraltar choosing not to do all of their fall sports besides cross country and swimming, I know at Sturgeon Bay, what has happened is what the WIAA had warned us would happen. If we don't host it, our kids are going to very quickly go to these club-type sports where there may be no safety guidelines put in place. And so we have the opportunity as a school to take some control of that and make sure they have opportunities here that are safe opportunities. You can see on TV that Gibraltar and Sturgeon Bay going to, they're in the 7-on-7 football league. Nobody is masked. There's no kind of screening or anything. And so we don't want that to have to be an option for our students, but at the same time, families can do whatever they feel is important and what their level of risk, comfort risk is. So we feel that our athletes would be most safe here if we can provide something for them.
So to get our arms around all of this, we've got a motion on the floor to give the administrative team the authority to do what is best for Sevastopol students. Do we have to retract the low, medium, and high?
Well, that motion,
That was in the Packer-like direction.
that's what, that came from Packland, it didn't come from us,
But if
right?
we're rescinding that and now.
Do we need to rescind that specific motion?
I
Or
don't
does
think
this
so.
motion override that?
This motion will override that one.
Okay.
Because that was made last month, this is now.
And then you wanted,
But Brooke was looking for some
you wanted
guidance on
motion
attendance.
on attendance?
Attendance and masking.
So you should first vote on this one, and then she'd like you to address attendance and masking. And then the other portion that we haven't touched upon is middle school sports and outside groups like Mighty Pioneers using our facilities. My feeling is if we're limiting our fans to the high school football games, our middle school would follow the same suit, and then if Mighty Pioneers is using our field, that's fine, but then they have to limit the same number of people watching the game, because we can't say, all right, we're gonna let each athlete have 2 people come to the game and then have them open it up and just have 500 people come to a 4th and 5th grade game, because that's still our facility. If they do something off-site like their softball, that's okay, we don't govern that, we don't even govern them, but if they're gonna use our facilities, then we do govern what happens on our school grounds. And so if we're being protective of our student body with the number of tickets we give for a high school game, Mighty Pioneers more than welcome to use our field, they should follow the same guidelines we have.
Would you monitor that, just, off craziness? I don't think it'll ever happen, but if we went down to a medium, like 2 weeks from now, just hypothetically
Sure.
saying it went down to medium, could an indoor sport get a ticket to go see it? Or
Yeah, possibility. If I see the cases drop and we feel comfortable that we could space people out, yeah.
So are we giving are we setting a guideline, or are we just giving you the authority to set the guideline? I mean, what?
Are we saying
Are we
2
saying-
tickets per student, or are we giving you the authority to say
I
when
don't-
you can have 2 tickets per student, or when you can have 4 tickets, or
I
open the
don't want
doors?
to come down out of the high for.
I think one of our recommendations was if we're at high, we talked about
Right, that would
to
be,
stay with no fans. If we drop to medium,
then we would.
then to allow
Yep.
2 fans per family or 4, whatever you guys feel is.
Sure.
But I guess, does that have to be in the motion spelled out like that, or are we just saying that it's,
I think we should have the flexibility
Right.
Yeah.
because things change so
because
fast.
otherwise we're going to be tied again like we were last.
Right, then you're tied until the next board meeting if you make a specific motion like that.
The
So,
board
But-
can't act that fast. It's too dynamic for the board to be able to react to.
so.
Right.
upcoming.
Yeah, because you won't be back here till October unless you have a special meeting. I can't see having a special meeting just for
No.
tickets at a game, right?
So is that all in one thing then? Or we should vote on this one?
We're gonna vote first on this motion that's on the table
Mhm.
to give the administrative team and the athletic director the ability to
Mr. Mayor?
make decisions
No, you can't.
that are in the best interest of the Sevastopol athlete.
Can I add one thing before you vote? I also just want you to know something that we will have to consider when you do give us the flexibility is that if the Pac-12 Conference decides that they are shutting down the fall and they are moving to the spring, Sevastopol would most likely move with them because we will need people to compete with.
Right, Brooke,
For
except
some
for the
sports.
football, you have like,
Football, we'd be good, we
right,
could
so
stay.
so it'll be a sport by sport
Yeah.
decision, yes.
And cross-country would go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes we're gonna get stuck, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that motion that's on the floor, is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
One comment, just to get it out there, is I recognize we need to give you the flexibility, and I support that. I just think it's important to voice my opinion that pushing fall sports to spring, I think is a bad idea, regardless of what the conference says, and I understand the competition thing. I've asked this of many people, what is the value of sport? And there's lots of good things we all know. Competition is not at the top of the list. So we're gonna push these kids into spring, because oh, by the way, what happens if spring doesn't change? When does the pushing end? As opposed to having these teaching moments and say sometimes life is very challenging and you don't get to play competition this year, but you can build like an off-season and become a better person. I think that's a significant thing. I'm glad you at least listened to me, but I understand you're gonna do what you think is best. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll then take a motion on requiring masking of athletes and spectators.
And workers,
Everyone that.
everybody
yeah.
that attends.
Anyone in attendance?
Yep.
Anyone in attendance?
Well, that's practice game, whatever, yeah. Bus ride.
Do they practice with masks?
They do,
Yes.
the only time they're allowed to take them off is when it's a high-intensity period, and then when they do that, they have to social distance, and that's up to the coach's discretion on what is, they're considering high intensity.
Someone make that motion on masking?
But don't we already have that? Because you can't come into our school without a mask on already.
This is in regards to, because the governor's orders may expire, and so. we-
Governor's
what was I
order,
saying?
the governor's order expires on September 24th. While we may require it for our staff and students, we probably need the motion to require it for attendees.
Because we want to be consistent.
Oh,
And they've had some problems where officials have showed up and refused to wear the mask. Kind of
Got it.
odd, but whatever, officials are sometimes stubborn people, so yeah, you know, they said, I'm not wearing a mask. Well, you came to work, you're at our school, that's our rule, so, yeah, so it'd be helpful if the board made that motion and approved masking for
yeah.
all in
I'm sorry,
attendance.
yes, I'm good.
Some stormed off, yeah, yeah.
Someone want to make the motion on masking?
I would move that the masking be required for all people, including the officials and the parents or other attendees and the students during all athletic competition events.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we'll look at the attendance motion, and that one I think was to give administrators, athletic director, the flexibility to determine at what point there are not attendees or attendees are limited.
The only comment I'll add, and we talked about at the athletic committee, was, do we think it would be wise for the school board to support the numbers so that as coaches and administrators have the school board with the numbers behind them? I understand the flexibility and stuff, but we're changing stuff all the time, so do we want to put numbers in it or not?
I appreciate that, Dave. You can put numbers in, however, if you're telling us you're backing us by our decision, that is giving us the authority and that is giving your backing and your blessing to us to make the right decision. So that's, I'm comfortable with that. I can do, if I pick 0 or 10 and someone doesn't like it, too bad, you know. I made bigger decisions in life than how many people come to the ball game.
Very good.
I just say it was Mr. Bear's idea.
Would someone make a motion on attendance, similar to the last, I guess?
I move that we give the administration the authority to determine the attendance limit to all sporting events.
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we would want a motion on middle school sports that it follow the same protocols as the high school sports.
And outside vendors, right?
And outside group, yeah, either put the outside groups with the middle school. We hope sport by sport, it may be a little different though, because like say our volleyball high school team gets quarantined and they can't work for 2 weeks and the rest of the conference says, hey, we're going to spring. Well, then our volleyball would want to move to spring for high school, but the middle school may still want to stay fall. So it won't be lockstep that all volleyball's moving or all volleyball's staying. One may go and one may stay, so we need that flexibility. So on a sport by sport basis again. And then as far as the outside groups, they got to follow our guidelines under our school grounds, I feel.
So,
Do we need a separate motion? I mean, the last motion we did, use the flexibility to make decisions what's best.
What's best for our
Because the best athletes. Doesn't that give you the coverage to decide sport by sport?
Gene, you want to read it back, the last
And
motion?
by.
Or not the masking or the one about decisions by sport.
the first
The one we
motion,
broke
The
away
first
from
motion?
the conference motion.
The first motion was that the board gives the authority to the administration team to be flexible to do what's in the best interest of our student athletes.
So
And doesn't that cover?
I think that doesn't say high school specific, so it could be middle school.
Right, and it would be outside groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, you're doing, an athlete is an athlete, whether they're high school, or grade school, or middle school.
Okay, then we have what we need on the athletic part. Is there anything else to reopen it?
I have a question on the athletic part.
Okay.
And I don't want to pick a scab, but the elementary group, the Mighty Pioneers, if they're following us, they're using our football equipment. They can't just go and say, well, we're going to go down here and have our games because we can't do it on school grounds, but we can do it over here at Memorial Field in Sturgeon Bay.
For example, they're doing softball over there, but that's all on their own. There's no equipment not. So you're saying with our equipment, our things, they follow our guidelines.
And when they're,
Right.
and this is not a motion, but I would like them to, because they are an extension of the school, I would like them to try to follow the school guidelines as far as sanitation and masking,
And
et cetera.
they are following those as much as, I mean, they have the sanitation, they are not wearing masks over there, because they are just by nature socially distanced.
They do in the softball.
Sometimes they will, but like in the game the other day, they didn't
Yeah.
have masks on. The coaches will wear them. I know that they have those things, but again, since they aren't, the town park isn't school facility, they, per what we
They don't
accept.
have to, but they are an extension of the school in
Each
some
kid has their
way.
own glove, each kid has their own bat, each kid has their own mask. They don't share, there's no shared equipment.
Yes,
either.
and
Right.
I'm also on the Mighty Pioneers board myself. I am the sports director there now this year, but it really is not the same role as athletic director. And I know that we have had many discussions, and Kyle and the board president with Mighty Pioneers, that we want the Mighty Pioneers to be as in sync with us as possible. We do understand that they are a club sport, and they understand that they have a code of conduct like we have at school. They have protocols for all of their events. So I know that they are trying, but
Okay, great. Anything else on the opening plan?
I think that's all right. Tell me if I'm missing anything. I can't think of anything else we're missing. Till tomorrow. But
Okay. We'll move to new business then, and we have some retirements. Some motion to accept the retirement of Michelle Jordan.
I move to accept the retirement of Michelle Jordan.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Just
All
to
in
thank,
favor, say.
thank Michelle for her service. She's very student-centered and gives her whole heart to her job. She's a wonderful special education teacher.
Well, it should be noted for the viewers that it's effective at the end of the school year. It's not immediate.
These are all of that.
No, they're not all. The next one won't be. But this one is the end of the school year.
So all in favor of Michelle Jordan's retirement, and accepting her retirement end of school year? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Joanne Surface, study hall aide, supervisor.
I move to accept the retirement of Joanne Surface, aide study hall supervisor.
And hers is effective,
Second.
Hers is effective January 31st of '21.
so the motion is accepting her retirement effective January 31st of 2021.
And she's been with the district for 25 years.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Diane Jenko, the reading specialist.
I would move to approve the retirement of Diane Jenquin, K-12 reading specialist.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Just the same thank you for all of these ladies.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll then move to the first reading of these policies. We'll begin with 5113.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 5113, open enrollment interdistrict. Second.
Other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5200.
Move to approve first reading of 5200 attendance.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5330.
5200.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 5200.01.
Move to approve the first reading of 5200.01, full-time student.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5330.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 5330, administration of medicine/emergency care. Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5461.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 5461, children at risk of not graduation from high school.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5517.
Move to approve the first reading policy 5517, student anti-harassment.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5630.
Move to approve the first reading policy 5630, corporal punishment.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 6220.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 6220, budget preparation.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 6605.
Move to approve the first reading of 6605, crowdfunding.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Did we do payroll deductions?
No.
No.
No,
You
I
skipped it.
missed 65.
Okay. Move to approve first reading policy 6520, payroll deductions.
Second.
Sorry.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve first reading policy 6800, system of accounting. Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
I would just like to say that I'd like to give a shout out to Jean because she does so much behind the scenes with these policies and working with Neola and getting them all online in our electronic policy handbook. And that is an action that goes unseen by all of us. So I really would like to give Jean a shout out because we have had so many policies and there's been so much to do. And Jean has just worked tirelessly with Neola. So thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jane.
That concludes our regular business for the evening. I'll take a motion to convene to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Dick?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
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 Motion carried unanimously at 8:45 p.m. Okay, we are back in session at 9:16 p.m. We'll look for a motion on the ELL instructional aid.
I would move to approve the employment of Claudia Verona de Garcia as an ELL instructional aid.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion on the support staff leave request.
Move to deny the support staff leave request.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have future meetings of the school board on October 15th of 2020. The communication committee will meet on the 21st. And equity committee and meet and confer committee, we want to look at next meeting to establish a date for those after we get through this next little.
But right now, you three are on the equity committee, right? And it was gonna be, you're gonna ask Aaron Hiltz, right? So, and who else we're gonna ask?
Melissa?
Melissa Mulcair and Margaret, yeah. So I don't know if you five want to set up a meeting or not between then and now. I don't know, yeah, we're busy, but we should slow up at some point here. Yeah, we gotta kind of keep things moving forward too.
I guess would you like me to reach out to Aaron and see if, Aaron and Melissa and see if,
Yeah,
maybe after this next week, if we
Send
go
out
back to
a
AP, they might not have quite so many calls to make. I know they've been.
Yeah, send out a few dates and then we can go from there.
And then the other one, meet and confer, do you have any requests on the meet and confer?
I don't have any staff concern forms, but we try and do this quarterly. We had one, I don't know, it was before the pandemic, so February maybe, and you were in January the last one. Maybe it was February? So we haven't had one since then, so we should set an evening up or a time up after school sometime. We rotate which members of the board attend, and I think it should be good after the first month here of the school year to get one, early October, so we can report back to the board. But I don't have any specific topics for it.
Well, a Wednesday, October 7th, 14th, 21.
Who's up
What's
for-
your schedule? What does your schedule look like?
Not the 7th, but the 14th would work. Oh no, the 7th would work too. I'm okay on the 7th after school.
Dick, you wanna go?
Dick, I was just gonna say, Dick, you want to do meet and confer? It's a listening session with any staff that come with And
Sure, on the 7th of October?
Mhm.
Yeah, what time again, 4:30?
We do 3 o'clock. Because
Oh.
the kids leave at 2:30, and we could do it at 3 o'clock. And I know it depends who else, because we usually have 2 board members go. Keith and Dave work, so that, and Keith went last time. Not that you can't go twice in a row, Keith.
No, if somebody,
I'm traveling October. I'm like,
I mean, if
Traveling?
nobody else wants to go, I'll do it, but
yeah,
I don't want to take it.
October 7th.
October 7th,
Oh,
and
no, I can't, I'm gone.
would the 14th work?
14th will work better. I'm
Just
sorry.
cross the 14th out and put it back in.
Hey, where do we meet?
Oh, here at school, I don't know, maybe right in this room here probably.
Okay, 14th,
14th at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Anyone else have a strong preference to go to this one?
That's a CISA board day, so that doesn't work for me.
Are you available, Cindy?
Sure,
I can.
3 o'clock.
Cindy and Dick, does that work?
Okay, October 14th, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
That would then conclude our business, so we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At 9:21 PM.